Let me ask you, if you could only focus on one thing for the next year, what would it be? Most people can't answer that. And that's why they never arrive at success, because they never choose the path. In the next few minutes, I'll show you how to find it. Here's what I promise you. In this message, I'll give you the clearest path to success you'll ever hear. You'll learn why focus matters more than busyness, why discipline is more valuable than luck, and why your philosophy is the compass that sets your direction. If you've been feeling stuck, scattered, or pulled in too many directions, I'll show you how to cut through the noise and concentrate on what really matters. Because when you get the fundamentals right, success stops being a mystery and starts being a guarantee. I know how frustrating it is to work hard and still feel like you're not getting anywhere. You keep adding more hours, more effort, more goals, but the results don't match. I've been there. And I discovered something that changed everything for me. Success is not about adding, it's about aligning. It's not about doing everything, it's about choosing the right things. That's why most people never break through. They're majoring in minor things. But once you focus, once you discipline yourself to concentrate on one path, one principle, one set of fundamentals, everything begins to change. That's what I want to share with you. So here's how we'll spend our time together. First, we'll talk about philosophy, because your thinking is the sail that determines your course. Then we'll talk about discipline, because without it, you'll always carry regret. We'll cover the law of sowing and reaping, the guarantee that you get back exactly what you plant. We'll dig into goals and vision, because success must be designed, not drifted into. We'll talk about associations, the people who shape you, whether you know it or not. And we'll cover the importance of self-education, working harder on yourself than you do on your job. Finally, I'll give you a 7-day action plan to put it all into practice right away. Along the way, I'll share stories, including the moment I couldn't buy a $2 box of cookies and the lessons that turned my life around. Stay with me, because if you'll apply what we cover, you'll see how focus, discipline, and simple fundamentals can set you on the best path to success. Now, here's something most people completely miss. They think their life is shaped by the circumstances around them, the economy, the government, the company they work for, the family they came from. And I understand why that thinking feels natural, because that's how I thought for the first 25 years of my life. When I was broke, behind on promises, unable to buy a $2 box of cookies, I told myself it was because the wind was against me. If only my boss paid more. If only the taxes weren't so high. If only I had started in a different place. That was my story. But let me tell you, it was the wrong story. The truth is, the same wind blows on us all. The wind of opportunity, the wind of challenge, the wind of change, the wind of tragedy. Everybody gets some of each. The question isn't whether the wind is fair, because the wind doesn't care. The question is, how have you set your sail? That's what determines your direction. That's what determines where you arrive. Two people can face the very same storm. One comes out broken, bitter, blaming. The other comes out wiser, stronger, even richer. What made the difference? Not the storm, not the wind. It was the set of the sail. Now, why does this matter? Because if you keep blaming the wind, you'll never take control of your life. You'll always be waiting for the world to change instead of changing yourself. And getting this wrong costs everything. It costs years of drift. It costs opportunities missed. It costs the quiet disappointment of reaching 40, 50, 60 years old and realizing you've been busy, sincere, hardworking, but off course the whole time. But when you get it right, when you realize it isn't the wind, it's the sail, suddenly you see possibility everywhere. Suddenly you know that if you'll reset your thinking, you can change direction in a week, in a day, in a single decision. That's the power of philosophy. So what exactly is the sail? The sail is nothing more than your philosophy, the collection of ideas you've accepted, the conclusions you've drawn, the beliefs you carry. And here's what I discovered. If your philosophy is wrong, your life will always be off course, no matter how hard you row. I worked hard for 6 years, and at the end of it, I had nothing but debt and regret. The problem wasn't lack of effort. The problem was that my sail was set in the wrong direction. Once I changed the sail, once I stopped blaming and started taking responsibility, my whole life turned. And let me give you a picture. Imagine two ships leaving the same harbor, the same ocean currents, the same winds, the same storms. One arrives safely in a prosperous port. The other ends up shipwrecked on the rocks. What made the difference? Not the wind, the set of the sail. And that's your life. You can't control the wind, but you can control the sail. You can't control the economy, but you can control your philosophy. You can't control the storm, but you can control your response. So let me ask you, how's your sail set? Are you pointing it toward excuses or toward responsibility? Toward wishing life was easier or toward becoming better? Toward blaming the storm or toward mastering it? That one choice decides your destination. And here's the best news. You can reset your sail in the next 7 days. You don't need a new decade. You don't need a new year. You don't even need a new job. You just need a new philosophy. And that's exactly what we're going to work on. Because once you learn how to reset your thinking, even in a single week, you'll feel the whole direction of your life begin to change. That's powerful enough on its own, but combine it with what I'm about to show you next, and you'll understand why people who take this seriously never go back to drifting. Because in just 7 days, you can begin the process of resetting your philosophy. And when you do, the same winds that once pushed you down will start carrying you forward. Here's something that may surprise you. You don't need 7 years to change the course of your life. You don't even need 7 months. You can begin the reset in just 7 days. Because the truth is, your life changes the moment you change your philosophy. The moment you stop saying, it's the wind, and you start saying, it's me. That's the turning point. And the beauty of it is, you don't have to wait. You can begin this very week. Let me paint the picture. For years, I blamed everything outside of me. The taxes were too high. The boss didn't pay enough. My company didn't appreciate me. The economy was unfair. I had a whole list. And when I met my mentor, he gave me the best assignment of my life. He said, Jim, take that long list of all your excuses. Write them down, every last one of them. And then when you're done, tear it up, throw it away. Get a brand new piece of paper, and this time write just one word on it, me. That was the day I stopped waiting for the world to change and started working on myself. So how do you reset your philosophy in just 7 days? Here's a very simple practice. For 1 week, I want you to capture every thought you have about money, about time, about health, about work, about relationships. Because here's the truth. Your thoughts are the seeds of your philosophy, and your philosophy is the set of your sail. If you don't know what you're thinking, you can't change it. Now, when you write them down, you'll see a pattern. Maybe you'll notice you say things like, I'll never get ahead, or I don't have enough time, or I just can't stick with anything. Those are not just words, those are philosophies. And philosophies become habits. Habits become actions, and actions become results. The good news is you can replace them. For example, instead of saying, I wish it were easier, you begin saying, I wish I was better. Instead of saying, there's not enough time, you say, let me value the time I've got. That's a new philosophy. Think of it like this. If your mind has been running the wrong program for years, this 7-day reset is your chance to install a new one. Every time a limiting thought appears, stop and replace it. Catch it, write it, replace it. Do that for 7 days straight, and you'll feel the shift. Because the battle is not with the wind, it's with your philosophy. And once you reset that, everything else begins to change. That's powerful enough on its own. But combine it with what I'm about to show you next, the bridge between philosophy and results, and you'll see why some people live lives of quiet desperation, while others live lives of extraordinary accomplishment. Now, here's a truth that changed everything for me. All of us must suffer from one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And believe me, there is a world of difference between the two. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. And yet, the tragedy of life is that most people choose the tons. Not because they want regret, but because, in the moment, discipline looks too small to matter. Skipping a workout, skipping a call, skipping $1 in savings, it all looks harmless until the ounces pile up into mountains of regret that can crush a lifetime. Think about what discipline really costs. It costs a few minutes of focus. It costs the temporary discomfort of saying no when it would be easier to say yes. It costs the stretch of rising early or staying a little later. It costs the effort of pushing through when you'd rather quit. That's discipline. It pinches, yes, but only for a moment. Now compare that to regret. Regret costs you years. Regret costs broken health, broken relationships, broken dreams. Regret is the ache of looking back and saying, if only I had. And here's the terrible thing about regret. It comes with interest. Because when you reach the season of harvest and realize you have nothing to show, nothing can be done to change that lost season. Let me give you a picture. Discipline is like carrying a small pack on your shoulders. It weighs a little, you feel it, but it keeps you upright and moving forward. Regret is like dragging a chain with a boulder tied to it. At first you think, I can manage this. But with every year, the weight grows heavier until it wears you down and slows you to a crawl. And by then, it's too late to put the chain down. That's why I tell people, take the pack now, carry the ounces. They'll keep you free from the tons. And this is why discipline is called the bridge between goals and accomplishment. You can set all the goals you like, write them down in beautiful detail, but without discipline, they stay on paper. They never cross into reality. That bridge must be built and walked every single day. Get this wrong, and you'll live in the land of intentions. Get it right, and you'll live in the land of results. Now, why do so many people resist discipline? Because they measure it only in the moment. They feel the sting of the ounce and forget the weight of the ton. They say, it's just one day I skipped, just one habit I ignored, just one promise I broke. And the truth is, they're right in the moment. It's no disaster. Skip one workout, nothing breaks. Skip $1 of savings, no crisis. Skip one day of reading, no collapse. And that's the deception. Because life doesn't send you the bill immediately. Life waits. But when it collects with interest, and the price is regret. I had a mentor tell me once, failure isn't a cataclysmic event. You don't fail overnight. Failure is just a few small errors in judgment repeated every day. And the opposite is just as true. Success is not magical. Success is a few simple disciplines practiced every day. That's the difference. And the choice is always yours. So let me ask you, what ounces are you avoiding today? What little disciplines are you pushing aside because they feel inconvenient, because they feel small? And are they worth the tons you might carry tomorrow? That's the question that can turn a life around. Because once you realize the weight of regret, discipline suddenly feels light. Now that's powerful enough by itself to see the cost of discipline compared to the cost of regret. But combine it with what I'm about to share next, and you'll understand why 7 days of new habits can become the foundation of a new future. Because discipline doesn't just protect you from regret, it begins to compound into results. And in the next part, I'll show you exactly how to build daily disciplines in just 1 week. Now, once you understand that discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs tons, the natural question is, how do I begin? How do I actually start putting discipline into my life so that it works for me instead of against me? And here's the best news I can give you. You don't have to wait until January 1st. You don't have to wait for the stars to align. You don't have to wait for some perfect time. You can start in the next 7 days. Because discipline doesn't begin with a grand event. It begins with a small decision. And the miracle is this. If you'll keep that small decision for just 1 week, you'll prove to yourself that change is possible. That proof alone will give you the confidence to keep going. So let's talk about what discipline looks like in practice. Most people imagine it as a harsh drill sergeant shouting orders, or as a rigid schedule that crushes joy. But discipline, at its best, is gentle. It's simple. It's the act of doing what you know you should do, when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not. That's all. And when you begin to practice it in small ways, it spreads into bigger areas of your life, like sunlight spilling over a horizon. Here's how you can start in just 7 days. Day 1, begin journaling. Take 10 minutes each evening and write down what happened that day. What you learned, what you're proud of, what you regret. Don't edit, just write. Because the act of writing forces you to think, and thinking is where change begins. A journal becomes your textbook for your own life, a record of lessons, mistakes, and progress. Day 2, save $1, just one. Because if you can't save $1, chances are you won't save 100. Wealth doesn't start with amounts. It starts with habits. And if you can teach yourself the habit of saving, even in the smallest way, you've set yourself on a path to financial freedom. Day 3, read for 15 minutes. That's it. Pick up a good book, something that stretches your mind, and read just a few pages. Do that for a week, and you've finished a book. Do that for a year, and you've read a small library. And that library will change your philosophy, which will change your sale, which will change your life. Day 4, move your body. Go for a walk. Do a stretch. Climb a flight of stairs. You don't need to run a marathon. You just need to prove to yourself that you control your body, not the other way around. Because when your body grows stronger, your confidence grows with it. Day 5, practice kindness. Say something encouraging to someone. Write a note of appreciation. Make a call you've been putting off. That's discipline too, the discipline of sowing good seed in your relationships. And it pays enormous dividends. Day 6, take a quiet hour to plan. Not a whole day, not a retreat in the mountains, just one quiet hour. Write your goals, set your intentions, look at where you're going. Because without planning, life will plan for you. Day 7, reflect. Sit down with your journal and ask, what did I learn this week? Where did I win? Where did I fall short? That reflection turns experience into wisdom. Without it, you repeat mistakes. With it, you multiply progress. Now, why does this matter so much? Because disciplines, like seeds, don't show their harvest immediately. You don't see a tree grow in a day, but every day you plant, every day you water, every day you tend the soil, you're creating momentum that will carry you far beyond what you can see right now. Neglect looks harmless in the moment, but multiplies into disaster. Discipline looks small in the moment, but multiplies into success. That's the law of life. And here's the most exciting part. Once you've practiced even one discipline for 7 days, you'll feel something inside you shift. You'll say to yourself, if I can change one thing, I can change 2. If I can change 2, I can change 10. That's when you know you've broken free from drift and stepped onto the bridge of accomplishment. That proof is priceless. It's the start of a new identity. So my challenge to you is simple. In the next 7 days, choose one discipline and keep it without fail. Just one. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's reading, maybe it's saving, maybe it's walking. But don't let yourself break the chain. At the end of the week, you'll be amazed at how far you've come, not because of the size of the habit, but because of the proof that you can keep a promise to yourself. That's the foundation of character, the root of all success. And once you've tasted that, you'll be ready for the next great principle, the law of sowing and reaping. Because once you learn how to plant deliberately instead of by accident, you'll never again wonder what kind of harvest you'll have. You'll know. And that's where we'll go next. Here's a principle that has governed life for thousands of years, and it will govern your life whether you understand it or not. You reap what you sow. It's as old as time, as unchanging as gravity, and as predictable as the sunrise. And yet, most people live as if it doesn't exist. They sow nothing and expect something. They plant weeds and hope for wheat. They neglect their fields and then cry out at harvest time, wondering why there's nothing to gather. But the law is simple, and it does not bend. You can only reap what you have sown. And if you sow nothing, you reap nothing. If you sow little, you reap little. If you sow abundantly, you reap abundantly. That's the guarantee. Why is this so important? Because it means the future is not a mystery. The future is the harvest of today's seed. If you don't like what you're reaping right now, your income, your relationships, your health, your peace of mind, the answer isn't to curse the soil or the rain or the season. The answer is to look at the seed you've been planting, because the soil always says yes. The soil doesn't argue. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't say, this is a good man, let's give him a good harvest. Or, this one's lazy, let's give him nothing. No, the soil simply takes what you give it, multiplies it, and hands it back. Sow foolishness, reap foolishness. Sow wisdom, reap wisdom. Sow neglect, reap regret. Sow discipline, reap success. And here's what makes this law even more sobering. You always reap later than you sow. You always reap greater than you sow. And you always reap exactly what you sow. Later, greater, and exactly. That's the pattern. Let's look at each one. First, later. You don't plant today and harvest tonight. There's a season in between. And that's where many people lose heart. They try a new habit for a week. They sow a seed of discipline for a month. They invest in kindness for a few days. And when nothing comes back immediately, they quit. They say, see, it didn't work. But the law says otherwise. The harvest always comes, but it comes later. That's why patience is part of success. If you can't endure the waiting season, you'll never enjoy the harvest season. Second, greater. The harvest is always bigger than the seed. That's the miracle. You plant one kernel of corn, you don't get one kernel back. You get a stalk with ears with hundreds of kernels. That's multiplication. And it works in every area of life. Sow $1 of saving, reap security and freedom. Sow one act of kindness, reap a friendship that blesses you for years. Sow 1 hour of study, reap skills that multiply your income for a lifetime. But remember, the reverse is true. Sow one careless word, reap years of distrust. Sow one moment of neglect, reap months of regret. The soil multiplies whatever you plant. And third, exactly. You don't plant wheat and get corn. You don't plant laziness and reap excellence. You don't plant excuses and reap results. You get back exactly what you sow, only later and greater. That's why I say, don't even try to fool the soil. You can fool your neighbor, you can fool your boss, you can even fool yourself for a while. But the harvest tells the truth. Look at your harvest. It's the most honest reflection of your sowing. Now let me give you a picture. Imagine a farmer standing by a field in springtime. His hands are empty. His barn is full of seed. But he says to the ground, "Give me a harvest, and then I'll plant." We'd call him a fool, wouldn't we? But that's how most people live. They say, "Give me health, and then I'll start exercising. Give me money, and then I'll start managing it. Give me respect, and then I'll act with integrity." But the law says no. First you sow, then you reap. First you plant, then you harvest. That's the order, and you can't change it. And here's a warning. You cannot change the harvest by complaining. You can't stand over a field of weeds and shout at it until it turns into wheat. You can't curse the soil and expect it to give you more. You can't beg the season to shorten its cycle. The harvest doesn't care about your complaints. The only way to change the harvest is to change the seed. That's why complaining is wasted breath. Energy spent complaining could be energy spent planting. So let me ask you, what seeds are you planting? Every day you're sowing something. With your words, with your habits, with your money, with your time. And those seeds are creating the harvest you'll eat tomorrow. That's not philosophy. That's law. And once you understand it, you'll stop asking, what kind of future will I have? And you'll start asking, what seeds am I planting today? Because once the seeds are in the ground, the harvest is inevitable. Now that's powerful enough on its own, but combine it with what I'm about to show you next, and you'll understand how to use this law deliberately, week by week, so you can start reaping the kind of harvest you actually want. Because once you learn to apply sowing and reaping to your daily life, even for 7 days, you'll see results that will make you never want to drift again. Now that we understand the law, the question becomes very practical. How do you apply it? Not someday, not when life finally slows down, not when you've got it all figured out, but in the next 7 days. Because the law of sowing and reaping isn't just a principle for farmers in some distant field. It's a principle for you right now in your daily life. And once you see it that way, you'll never again underestimate a week. You'll begin to see that every day is a patch of soil, every decision is a seed, and every week is a field waiting for harvest. Let's start with your words. In the next 7 days, every word you speak will plant something. Sow gossip, you'll reap distrust. Sow encouragement, you'll reap loyalty. Sow excuses, you'll reap weakness. Sow gratitude, you'll reap joy. That's how powerful words are. A word spoken today can bear fruit for years to come. Think about the person who encouraged you when you were ready to give up. That one word may have shaped your entire future. Now imagine being that voice for someone else this week. You never know how far the harvest will spread. Now let's look at your habits. Habits are seeds planted daily, whether you're conscious of them or not. In the next 7 days, you'll either sow neglect or you'll sow discipline. Spend an evening with the television, you've sown a seed. Spend an evening with a book, you've sown a different seed. Skip the walk, you've sown a seed. Take the walk, you've sown another. And the harvest is not immediate, but it is inevitable. Neglect produces regret, discipline produces results. The soil doesn't argue, it just gives you back what you gave it, multiplied. How about relationships? Sow kindness, reap trust. Sow patience, reap harmony. Sow selfishness, reap loneliness. This week, take 1 day and deliberately sow kindness into someone's life. Write the note, make the call, give the encouragement. Watch what happens. You may not reap the full harvest immediately, but you'll see the sprouts. And those sprouts will remind you that the law works just as faithfully in relationships as it does in the field. And don't forget about your money. Sow savings, reap security. Sow investment, reap growth. Sow spending beyond your means, reap stress and debt. The soil of money is incredibly honest. It multiplies what you put in, but it never gives back what you refuse to sow. Start with just $1 a day this week. Prove to yourself that you can plant the seed. Because the issue isn't the amount, the issue is the habit. If you can't save $1, chances are you won't save 100. But once you've proven to yourself you can sow, the harvest will take care of itself. Now here's what makes this so exciting. When you sow deliberately for 7 days, you'll start to see sprouts immediately. Not the full harvest, but the first signs. And those little sprouts will give you proof. Proof that the law works. Proof that you're not a victim of chance. Proof that you can create the future you want, one seed at a time. And once you've seen that proof, you'll never go back to scattering seed carelessly or wasting the soil with neglect. You'll understand that life is not something that happens to you. Life is something you plant, tend, and harvest. So here's my challenge for the week. Choose 3 seeds to sow deliberately. Maybe 1 in your words, 1 in your habits, and 1 in your relationships. Be intentional. Plant them every day for 7 days. And at the end of the week, look back and notice what sprouted. You'll be amazed. Because once you've seen the law of sowing and reaping at work in your own life, you'll never again doubt it. You'll know it's true. And that's powerful enough by itself. But combine it with what I'm about to share next, and you'll understand why some people scrape by while others design lives of abundance. Because the next piece of the puzzle is goals and vision. And without them, you may sow, but you'll sow randomly. With them, you'll plant with purpose. And that makes all the difference. Now, here's something I want you to think about very carefully. Most people wake up every day and set out with no clear plan, no clear destination, and no clear picture of what they really want. They go to work because it's Monday. They come home because the day is done. They watch television because it's there. And they repeat it all again tomorrow. And if you ask them where they're headed, most will shrug and say, I just hope things get better. But hope is not a strategy, and drift is not design. Without goals, life becomes nothing more than survival, a series of days strung together with no real progress, no real meaning. And one day you wake up and realize you've spent years being busy, without becoming, active, without advancing, moving, but not arriving. That's the danger of living without goals. I know this, because that's exactly how I lived for the first 25 years of my life. I worked hard, I was sincere, I gave my effort, and yet at the end of 6 years, I had nothing to show but pennies in my pocket, promises I couldn't keep, and embarrassment every time someone asked me about my progress. And then I met a man who became my mentor, and he asked me a question that pierced right through me. He said, Jim, can I see your list of goals? And I had to admit, I didn't have one. I had dreams in my head, I had vague wishes in my heart, but nothing written down, nothing clear, nothing specific. And my mentor said, well then, young man, I can guess your bank balance within a few $100s. And he was right. Because without goals, I was drifting. Without goals, I was broke. Without goals, I had no pull, no magnet, no direction. That was the day I learned one of the greatest lessons of my life. The size of your goals determines the size of your life. Now, why are goals so powerful? Because goals are magnets. They pull you forward. They give your days meaning. They give your actions structure. They give your life direction. Without them, you're a ship without a rudder, tossed about by every wind and every wave. With them, you can harness the very same winds and steer toward a chosen destination. That's the miracle of goals. They don't change the wind, they change you. They don't change the economy, they change your decisions. They don't change the storm, but they give you the courage to face it because you know where you're going. And let me tell you something else. Goals reshape not only your future, but your present. The moment you set a clear goal, your behavior starts to change. You think differently. You speak differently. You notice opportunities you used to miss. You filter your choices through a new lens. Does this move me closer to my goal or further away? And that filter alone can save you from years of wasted effort. Think about how most people plan their lives. They'll spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they do planning their entire future. They'll research hotels, book flights, read reviews, and map out every day of their trip. But when it comes to the next 10, 20, 30 years of their life, they leave it all to chance. And then they wonder why they arrive at a destination they never wanted. But the answer is simple. Without goals, you drift. With goals, you design. And design is always better than drift. And here's the real value of setting goals. It's not just what you get by reaching them, it's who you become in the process. The true prize of becoming a millionaire isn't the $1 million. It's the discipline, the courage, the wisdom, the skills you develop to earn it. Because if someone handed you the money without the growth, you'd lose it. But if you earn it, you can build it back again and again. Because the money isn't the real fortune. The real fortune is you. And that's why goals matter. So let me ask you, do you have yours written down? Do you have them clear, specific, vivid, exciting? Or are they still vague wishes floating around in your head like, I'd like to be healthier, or I'd like to make more money, or I'd like to be happier someday? Vague goals have no power. Vague goals don't pull. Vague goals don't stir your soul. You need goals that are sharp, detailed, and alive. Goals that you can see so clearly in your imagination that they feel real even before they happen. Goals that make you leap out of bed in the morning because you can't wait to move one step closer to them. That's why I say goals are not a luxury, they are a necessity. Without them, life becomes routine. With them, life becomes an adventure. Without them, you scrape by. With them, you design. Without them, you drift. With them, you arrive. And once you've felt the power of a goal pulling you forward, you'll never want to go back to drifting again. Now that's enough to convince you why goals matter. But don't stop there, because knowing the importance of goals is only the beginning. The real transformation happens when you actually set them, write them down, and commit to them. And that's what I want to show you next, how to reset your goals in the next 7 days and design a future so clear, so compelling, that you can't help but move toward it. Now here's where the real work begins. It's one thing to understand that goals matter, to nod your head and agree, but it's another thing to actually sit down and write them. And most people never do. They carry vague ideas around in their head. I'd like to be healthier. I'd like to make more money. I'd like to travel someday. But they never take the time to put pen to paper and design their life. And here's the truth. A goal not written is only a wish, and wishes don't pull you forward. They drift around like smoke. But the moment you write it down, the moment you capture it in ink, that dream begins to take on weight and shape. It moves from wish to plan. It becomes the compass that can guide you through the storms. So let me give you a challenge. In the next 7 days, I want you to reset your goals. Don't wait until the first of the month. Don't wait until January 1st. Don't wait until someday. Do it now. Here's how. On day 1, take a notebook. Find a quiet place and write down everything you want. Big things, small things, short-term, long-term, personal, financial, spiritual, relational. Write it all. Let your imagination run without limits. If you want a house on the hill, write it. If you want to pay off your debts, write it. If you want to run a marathon, write it. If you want to be the kind of person your children look up to, write it. Don't filter. Don't judge. Don't ask how. Just write. This is your dream list. Then, on day 2, start sorting them. Look at your list and ask, which of these are short-term? Which can I accomplish in a year or less? Then look at the medium-range goals, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. And finally, the long-range goals, 10 years, 20 years, maybe even a lifetime. The reason this step is so important is because without balance, you'll either get discouraged or you'll stagnate. If all your goals are long-term, the finish line feels too far away and you'll lose motivation. If all your goals are short-term, you'll miss the growth that comes from stretching into the future. You need both short-term for confidence, long-term for vision. On day 3, pick the ones that stir your soul. Don't try to chase 100 goals at once. Narrow them down. Choose 4 goals in each category, short, medium, long. And for each one, I want you to write 2 things. First, what exactly do I want? Make it vivid, make it detailed, make it real. Don't just write a car. Write a 2026 black Lexus, leather interior, paid for in cash. Don't just write more money. Write double my income in the next 3 years so I can pay off debt, travel with my family, and give generously. The clearer the picture, the stronger the pull. Then, Second, write why. Why do I want this? What will it do for me? Who will it make me become? Because without a why, the what fades. But with a why, the goal burns. The why is the fuel that keeps you moving when the winds are against you. On day 4, write a paragraph for each goal, describing what it looks like when you achieve it. See yourself there. Feel it. Smell it. Live in that picture for a few minutes. Because the imagination is powerful. It plants the seed of belief. On day 5, take one of those goals and begin. Don't wait for everything to be ready. Begin. Save the first dollar. Walk the first mile. Read the first chapter. Make the first call. Take the first step. Because the moment you move toward a goal, something shifts inside you. You stop drifting and you start designing. On day 6, review your list again. Make adjustments. Clarify. Add details. Remove what doesn't inspire you. Refine the blueprint. And on day 7, sit quietly with your list. Read it out loud and commit to it. Say to yourself, this is my design. This is my life by choice, not by chance. This is where I'm going. And let that conviction sink deep into your heart. Because the moment you know where you're going, you're already halfway there. Now, let me tell you why this matters so much. I remember after the first moon landing, many astronauts fell into deep depression. You'd think reaching the moon would be the pinnacle of their lives. But here's the truth. Once they checked that off the list, they had no new goals, no new pull. And without goals, even the greatest achievement can feel empty. That's why goals are not just about achievement. They're about keeping you alive, pulling you forward, giving you reason to grow. So don't skip this. Don't say, I'll get to it later. Later is the language of regret. Later is the seed of neglect. Later is the thief of dreams. Take 7 days and reset your goals. And once you've done that, you'll feel a new pull, a new magnet, a new reason to get up in the morning. That's powerful enough on its own. But combine it with what I'm about to share next, and you'll understand why even the best goals can fail if you're walking with the wrong crowd. Because goals can pull you forward, but the wrong associations can drag you back. And that's what we need to talk about next. Now, here's one of the most important discoveries of my life, and I want you to catch it deep. Formal education can make you a living, but self-education can make you a fortune. And I don't just mean a fortune in money, though that's part of it. I mean a fortune in wisdom, in influence, in confidence, in the richness of your character. You see, a diploma may get you a job, but it will never guarantee you wealth, never guarantee you freedom, never guarantee you happiness. Those things don't come from the school system. They come from what you learn after the classroom, what you learn from books, mentors, experiences, mistakes, and reflection. That's the kind of learning that builds a life. Why does this matter so much? Because the marketplace doesn't pay you for your time, it pays you for your value. You don't get paid because the clock ticks. You get paid because you bring something of worth to the table. And the only way to increase your worth is to increase yourself. That's why I tell people, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. If you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. And a fortune isn't just measured in dollars. It's measured in the options you have, the freedom you enjoy, the people you can help, and the legacy you leave. Think about it. 2 people can start in the same company, same position, same pay. One does what's required, no more, no less, goes home, spends evenings with entertainment, and wonders why nothing changes. The other reads for an hour a night, listens to recordings, takes notes, asks questions, attends seminars, and captures ideas in a journal. Fast forward 5 years, and one is still in the same place, frustrated, complaining about the boss. The other has doubled, tripled, maybe even multiplied their income, not because the winds blew differently, but because they became more valuable. That's the power of self-education. Let me give you a personal story. When I was 25, broke and embarrassed, I didn't have the money for college. I didn't have degrees or credentials, but I did have the hunger to learn. So I decided I'd become a student for life. I built a library in my house. I started reading everything I could get my hands on: history, philosophy, economics, biographies. I listened to recordings in my car until the tapes wore thin. I carried a journal everywhere, capturing thoughts and lessons. And you know what happened? My income began to change. My results began to change. My influence began to change. Not because the economy changed, but because I did. Here's the secret. One idea can change everything. One sentence, one paragraph, one story can reset the direction of your whole life. That's why you never want to miss a book, never want to miss a seminar, never want to miss a chance to learn. Because you never know which idea will be the one that turns the sail of your philosophy and sends you toward a new future. Now, some people say, but books cost money. Seminars cost money. Programs cost money. And I always answer, ignorance costs more. A book may cost you $10, but the right idea from that book could make you $1 million. A seminar ticket may cost a few hundred, but the insights you take home could multiply your income for the rest of your life. That's not an expense, that's an investment. The tragedy is, most people are more careful with their money than with their time. They'll waste years drifting but hesitate to spend $10 on a book that could change everything. Don't let that be you. So here's what I want you to do in the next 7 days. Pick one book, just one. A book that stretches your thinking, that challenges your philosophy, that forces you to see the world in a new way. Read it, underline it, take notes. And when you come across a sentence that stirs you, don't let it slip away. Capture it in your journal. Because ideas are slippery. They can slide right through your fingers unless you trap them in ink. And once they're trapped, you can revisit them, refine them, apply them. That's how philosophy is built. One captured idea at a time. Now remember, learning without action is wasted. Don't just collect knowledge like trinkets on a shelf. Apply it, test it, live it. Wisdom isn't what you know. Wisdom is what you practice. And when you practice what you learn, you become the kind of person who naturally attracts success. So never stop being a student. Stay hungry, stay humble. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because the more you become, the more you can have, and the more you can give. And that's the real fortune. Now that's powerful enough on its own. But combine it with what I'm about to give you next, and you'll see how to take all of this philosophy, discipline, sewing, goals, associations, self-education, and bring it into a simple, practical plan you can start this week. A plan that will prove to you that change doesn't take forever. That in just 7 days, you can start building momentum so strong, you'll never want to stop. That's the 7-day action plan, and that's where we'll go next. Now here's where everything we've talked about comes together. Philosophy, discipline, sowing and reaping, goals, associations, self-education. They're all powerful, but power unused is power wasted. Principles sitting on the shelf don't change your life. Action does. And the best way to prove this to yourself is to give it a test. Not next year, not next month, not someday, but this week. Because if you can live by these principles for just 7 days, you'll have proof. Proof that you can change. Proof that you can set a sail, build a bridge, plant a seed, design a future, guard your associations, and grow yourself. And once you've tasted that proof, you'll never go back to drifting again. So let's lay it out, day by day. Day 1, write your goals. Tonight, sit down with a notebook and write them all. Don't edit, don't filter, just write. Everything you want to do, to have, to become. Put it on paper. Because a goal not written is only a wish, and wishes don't pull you forward. Written goals are the blueprint of your life. Day 2, start a journal. Get yourself a notebook and begin capturing the days. Write what you learned, what you felt, what you saw, what you regret, what you're grateful for. The weakest ink is stronger than the strongest memory. And over time, that journal becomes your most valuable textbook, your personal history of growth. Day 3, choose one new discipline, just one. Maybe it's reading 15 minutes. Maybe it's saving $1. Maybe it's walking around the block. Don't pick 10. Pick one and then do it without fail for 7 days. That's all. Because if you can keep one promise to yourself, you've planted the seed of self-respect. And once that grows, you can add more. Day 4, evaluate your associations. Write down the 5 people you spend the most time with. Ask yourself, are they lifting me or are they dragging me? Are they sowing into my future or are they poisoning my water? And then make adjustments. Spend more with those who lift. Limit the time with those who drain. Protect your average because it's protecting your destiny. Day 5, sow kindness. Do something for someone else without expecting anything back. Write a note, make a call, offer a word of encouragement. That's a seed. And the law of sowing says it will come back multiplied. You may not see the full harvest this week, but you'll see the sprouts, and they'll remind you the law works. Day 6, Read for 30 minutes. Pick a book that stretches you. Read with a pen in your hand. Underline, capture ideas in your journal. Because one idea can change your life forever. And ideas don't reveal themselves to the careless. They reveal themselves to the student who pays attention. Day 7. Reflect, refine, recommit. Take an hour, sit quietly, review your week. Look at your goals, your journal, your new discipline, your associations, your kindness, your reading. Ask, what did I learn? Where did I win? Where can I improve? Reflection turns experience into wisdom, and wisdom is what keeps you moving forward. Then recommit. Say to yourself, this is not the end. This is the beginning. I've proved I can change in 7 days. Now I'll continue for another 7 and another until this becomes my life. Now, why is this plan so powerful? Because it compresses everything into a short window where you can see progress immediately. Most people never change because they think it takes too long, but 7 days is enough to feel momentum. 7 days is enough to see sprouts. 7 days is enough to prove that your philosophy is shifting. Your discipline is building. Your seeds are planted. Your goals are written. Your associations are examined. And your mind is growing. And once you've seen that, you'll know that change doesn't take forever. It takes a decision. And then it takes 1 week of follow-through. Think of a rocket leaving the Earth. Most of the fuel is burned at liftoff, not in orbit. Why? Because it takes massive energy to break free from gravity. But once it's free, momentum carries it forward with far less effort. That's what this 7-day plan is. It's your liftoff. It's the concentrated push that breaks you free from old habits, from drift, from regret. And once you're free, momentum will make it easier to keep going than to stop. So don't delay. Start tonight. Begin with day 1. Write your goals. And let this week be the week that changes everything. Because when you've lived 7 days on purpose, you'll never again be satisfied with 7 days of drift. Now, as we come to the end of this message, I want you to pause and think carefully about what we've covered. We started with philosophy because everything begins with how you set your sail. We talked about discipline, the bridge between your goals and your accomplishments. The simple truth that the pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. We studied the law of sowing and reaping, that timeless guarantee that you always reap later, you always reap greater, and you always reap exactly what you sow. We moved into the power of goals, the difference between drifting and designing, between vague wishes and written plans. We looked at associations, the reality that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. We examined the value of self-education, the decision to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And then we tied it all together in a 7-day plan that proves you don't need a lifetime to turn things around. You just need a week of deliberate action to ignite momentum that can carry you for years. Now, here's what I want you to remember. Success is not something mysterious. It is not reserved for the few. It is not given to the lucky. Success is predictable because success is built on principles, and principles never fail. They are the laws of life. Just as surely as the seasons follow one another, just as surely as day follows night, so too will philosophy, discipline, sowing, goals, associations, and self-education produce a harvest. If you live by them, you succeed. If you neglect them, you fail. That's the truth. But here's the warning. Listening to these words changes nothing unless you act. You can take notes, you can nod your head, you can agree in your mind, but unless you put pen to paper, unless you begin the disciplines, unless you sow the seeds, unless you take the 7-day challenge, then this becomes nothing more than another good talk, another pleasant hour, another set of forgotten ideas. Don't let that be you. Don't let another 7 days pass without proof that you can change, because the weeks will pass either way. The only question is, will they leave you with regret or with momentum? And here's the promise. If you will take these next 7 days seriously, if you will write your goals, keep your journal, practice one new discipline, evaluate your associations, sow kindness, read a book, reflect and recommit, then you'll have something that no one can ever take from you. You'll have proof. Proof that you can change. Proof that you can set your sail. Proof that you can take control of your future. And once you've tasted that proof, you'll never go back. Because once you know you can change, you can never again convince yourself that you're stuck. So let this be your week. Don't wait. Don't say, someday. Don't wait for January. Don't wait for the economy. Don't wait for the government. Don't wait for your boss. Don't wait for your family. Wait is a thief. Begin now, tonight. Write your goals. Start your journal. Plant your seeds. Reset your sail. Build your bridge. And let this week be the week that changes everything. And before we part, let me point you to what comes next. Because as powerful as these principles are, you must also learn how to live with the rhythm of life itself. You must understand the seasons. Because no matter how strong your philosophy, winter still comes. No matter how clear your goals, summer still requires effort. No matter how good your plan, fall still requires accountability. But here's the good news. After every winter comes spring. The seasons are predictable, and if you learn how to master them, you'll never again be surprised. You'll be prepared. You'll know that winter is not the end, but the prelude to spring. You'll know that summer is the time to guard and tend. You'll know that fall is the time to reap and account. And you'll know that spring always comes again. So join me in the next lesson, where we'll study the seasons of life. Because if you can master the seasons, if you can live in harmony with their rhythm, then no matter what comes, you'll be steady, prepared, and moving forward. That's the next step. And I invite you to take it. For now, remember this. Success is not something you chase. It's something you attract by the person you become. And the best path to success begins not with luck, not with chance, but with a decision. Decide today, decide this week, decide now, and watch your life change.